Hello, everybody. Happy holidays, and welcome to this episode of the Designer's Den. Oh my goodness, I really wanted to say the round table again. I'm having a hard time with that lately. That's not this show. Um, I am super excited today um, to welcome my guest, VJ Harris, and they wrote the DM's Guild bestseller, Elven Orc Had a Little Baby. But I'll let VJ introduce themselves.
Hey everybody, I'm VJ Harris. People also know me as Vic. Like Jimmy said, I did co-write an Elf and Orc Had a Little Baby with my fantastic partner Adam Hancock and our amazing editor Ashton Duncan. I cannot give more praise to either one of them. Like working on that project was a dream, and they're both amazing creators and editors.
Having like good co-creators and good editors like cannot be like overvalued. Like it, it just like changes everything so much. Okay, well, so for people who aren't familiar with an elf, an elf and an orc had a little baby. Do you want to give a little bit of background just on like what it is? It's not an adventure. It's a supplement.
Yeah. Okay, so an elf and an orc had a little baby is essentially mine and Adam's approach in dealing with some of the messed up aspects of race in Dungeons and Dragons. So pretty much what we did is we took like all of the current races, official ones, some like unofficial ones that are like on the are on D&D Beyond, and we split them up into parentage and upbringing. So that way we could really, for the most part, do away with like some of the weird real world race elements as far as like
So like the orcs are like big and burly, but they're kind of dumb.
yeah, just really like moving away from ability score improvements being tied to like your actual race.
Because like a lot of people know, like your actual genetic race and all of that doesn't really have as much impact on like how you grow up so much as it's the whole nature versus nurture argument.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
even though it's a game, fantasy game, like I mean, I completely agree. Like I have technically a goblin, but they won't be very happy if you tell them they're a goblin because they were raised by this lovely halfling family, and their mom always told them they were just a very ugly halfling. It's fine though. So they have a healthy distrust of goblins. but um nice loving family and everything because it doesn't matter if all the kids make fun of you for not looking like a halfling. Mama still loves you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you tell mama who's making fun of you. Yeah. So I was for one super excited when I saw this product came out. It I guess topped on the charts there. Was number one for a little bit, bumped down by Eberron, but Keith Baker released that, so like
Yeah, what do you expect
it
though?
doesn't count. It doesn't count. It was still number one. But it not only was very timely in the subject matter that it discussed, but it definitely kind of stood out visually on the banner as well. So banner being um, on DM's Guild, there are banners or ribbons. I guess a lot of people call them ribbons for different categories. Like Gilded Eps has a ribbon. Under $5 has a ribbon. Newest products, newest community. So ribbons for all of that, and just the cover art for it was like so much different for everything else that was going on currently right there. So it was just like it's just this couple just like lovingly embracing their little infant, and it's just so beautiful and heartwarming. So I actually bought it before, but without reading it, because I was like, I don't know what it is, but I need it.
Yeah, like I think that's like probably one of my favorite things about this product is the cover. It's like it's so soft and loving. And I'm not saying there aren't any covers that do that, but I've seen very few of them, and just like the whole like the way the orc was like portrayed in that, and just the loving, like caring and sweet nature that we don't see a lot in like anything, in my opinion, especially as far as the DMs Guild goes, and like outside media. And it's just like, this is like a complete change of pace.
Start to feel like you shouldn't be intruding on their private moment after looking at it for too long.
Oh, I do want to highlight the amazing artists that actually did that for us. And yeah, hold on. I have their name written down.
Atornii, Atornii. I had it.
Yes. Oh, awesome. Thank God. I'm so bad. Um everybody should really go commission them if possible for anything. Like, they were amazing to work with and really captured what we were going for.
Yeah, so then the supplement goes into we term bioessentialism, which is a term that I hadn't really thought about. Very scientific. And how, like, you know, all of this stuff, all of these traits and stuff that you pick up throughout life, are really more tied to like the nurturing part. So like you said, you go through all of the parentages, Aarakocra, all the way down to Yuan-ti, or however anybody wants to pronounce those two things. We can fight. And it's really just like, I mean, there are, 113 pages in this book. Mm-hmm. So it is a book. It is a book.
Yeah.
And a labor of love. So, I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, like, the inspiration was probably all of the discourse that was happening on Twitter surrounding orcs and dark elves, and I guess their relation to non-fantasy races, and how people were kind of up in arms over that. And there were definitely two factions. I mean, those who were wrong and those who were right.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. So I can say without a doubt, definitely, like, so the project originally wasn't my idea. Like, I had been engaged in the conversation about, like, how some of these races were mirroring, like, racial stereotypes and stuff that have been used against people of color. But Adam actually reached out to me to be like, hey, you want to be a part of this project? And since, like, this conversation was just happening, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can, like, try and fix something that I very much don't like. And, like, Adam was talking to me about how he had been on, I'm gonna mispronounce this name.
I'm bad at that.
Graxel's Guide to Ancestry. It's the one with, like, the mind flayer on it, and it just gives you kind of like floating options in regards to, like, your ability score improvements, and how to, like, build your character if you want to, like, just do a big old mashup. And that was great work. And Adam had, like, I want to expand on that. And so when he reached out, first off, I was like, oh my God, Adam Hancock wants to do a project with me. I was like, this is a big name in the space. Oh my God. And then the next thing was like, oh yeah, definitely. And I was really excited to be able to, like, be like, I did the foreword, which brought up the bioessentialism and whatnot. And I was like, I was so happy to be working with somebody who didn't feel like that was going to be, like, too politicized or too much of a problem to add into there, because it was really, like, I really wanted to make it clear about one of the reasons why I wanted to be a part of this project, and why I thought what we were doing was, like, good and was going to be great for people's games.
I mean, and I definitely think that it has been, especially with, like, so many of these ideas and everything that we're seeing now have been kind of incorporated into Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And that's I mean, it's a little different on how they've done it versus how it's presented in your product, but, you know, it's gonna be very fulfilling to see, like, a bit of more mainstream acceptance of moving away from those tropes. And yeah, so you know, as you were kind of going through here and everything, like, how was the process for, like, deciding, like, what were kind of these innate characteristics that you could get passed on from your parentage as opposed to like things that were from your upbringing?
Yeah, so of course we're in a magical setting. So
Oh yeah.
anything that could like be attributed to magical things or like or like fantasy biology, we were like, yeah, sure, we'll keep it. So for example, the Dragonborn's dragon breath. Like even if you, let's say there was an upbringing that was associated with the Dragonborn, like there's no way you're going to get a breath weapon just because you were raised in that culture, right? So like that was very much the question, like could somebody realistically learn this ability if they were in the culture? Weapons, yes.
How to fly?
Not so much if you don't, not if you don't have wings,
Ah,
or integrated protection as far as like the Warforge goes, like that's just something, like some things were very
tied into their physiology.
yeah, they're like I there were a lot, like for a lot of these races that we took, like it was very clear, like some things were physiology and some things were clearly background. And it wasn't as, it was the hardest part, I would say, for me was really figuring out the, like there's a point system, there was a point system we were working with to figure out like what would make it balanced, which parent got what. And that was probably the hardest thing for me. Like we were following the guide. There's this thing out on the internet called Detect Balance. It
Mhm.
started off as one person and now it's like a community led thing, people add stuff to it, and it was really instrumental in us figuring out like the base and then trying to build off of that for the races that hadn't been added at that point. And so that was definitely where the challenge was, because something, like I said, some things are very clearly physiology versus upbringing.
Mhm. Like, Aarakocra and Asmar have wings, changeling abilities. I mean, you really gotta be a changeling.
Exactly. Like,
But then when you get past the parentage stuff into, and you have some great examples of also just uh, NPCs or whatever that you can put into it that you've given examples, like for the part Gith, um, you've got a Mac who is half Gith, half Orc, and you've given some examples of like how to build out these characters, like whether you're going to use that as like your own PC or like an NPC, and how to kind of bring them to life. But then as you get further into it and you get down to like the upbringing stuff, oh my goodness, I'm trying to scroll past all the parentages, and there are so many.
lots of races in D&D.
Oh my god, it's true though. Okay, there we are. You get into like the upbringing stuff. So like, um, you start with like you were raised, at a magic school. Like, okay, if you grow up in a college of wizards, like, it's kind of like when you think of something like that, it's kind of like an apprentice, right? So if you come from a trade family in like any fantasy setting, like you are pretty much expected to, like, if not go into that trade, to at least be knowledgeable about it. Maybe you don't want to be a blacksmith even though your family's been blacksmiths for like 8 generations. Maybe you're going to be um a woodworker, but you still know
Exactly.
blacksmithing,
Mm-hmm.
at least to a certain extent, because you've just spent so much time around your family, and like that's their trade, that's their life, it's their passion. And so like, being around like someone who is immersed in their passion, it's very hard, like even like real life, to not like absorb some of that, like, um
Mm-hmm.
and so I thought that some of the choices that you had in here were so very cool too. So like, and it's kind of all over the place. Just from Abjurer upbringing was the one I started with there, and then you have like stuff like you were raised in Avernus in each of the layers of hell.
Mm-hmm.
Because each of the layers of hell is different, has a very distinct personality itself.
Oh yeah.
And I think this one's probably the most fun section, because these were things where you guys got to just think outside of the box, like for real. and kind of imagine like the situations that people could have been raised in. So there are, I counted them and then I promptly forgot how many there are. But there are a lot of them. So, like, what was the inspiration behind them? Did you just like sit down and start thinking of like things that people can do in the Forgotten Realms and in Eberron and
So first thing I want to say is like a large chunk of those are on Adam. Like
okay.
not to say I didn't do any of them. Like we both worked on stuff, but like Adam really had like
He had
some
ideas
really,
already.
yeah, really great ideas. And like I sometimes struggle with the names of things. I could easily like be like, oh yeah, you'll have one culture who like works on XYZ thing, and then I might not be able to come up with a really good name for it. And Adam would be like, oh hey, what about so like but definitely what my process when doing that. So let's see, what is a good okay, let's take high elves for example, right?
Mhm.
So high elves get um actually I take that back. Let's take wood elves. I'm better with I'm better with wood elves. So wood elves get a number of things, right? Like they get fleet of foot, they get fleet of foot, they get like a camouflage ability in the woods and whatnot, and they get bonuses
They
to
get the Legolas package.
yeah, they get the Legolas package, right? And what really when I was looking at that, it was very much like okay, so camouflaging in the woods, that's not inherent to your physiology. You'll learn that by like
What to
living through it.
wear, how to
Yeah,
mask your scent, how to move. Yeah.
exactly. So really pretty much it was like the whole thing was an exercise in like after we separated the physiology from the upbringing, just a very just an exercise in okay, what do we call this? Are you 100% sure this shouldn't go in physiology? Because some things were a little dicey. Like for example, for the humans, like we still have ability score increases for like your parentage for a couple of reasons. One, there's just not enough for like regular styled humans, but also like the lore of like humans are these innovators and all this other stuff, and it's like that could be that could very much be a cultural thing, but it could also be like some type of like what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't even know. I don't even know if I would go so much with like humans or innovators so much as like the human race, even in fantasy, has always been like a bit of a sponge. They just like everything
Yeah.
they go into, they just absorb little pieces of it, and they're like, "We like this, we're gonna also do it."
Hmm. Hmm.
In this,
Yeah,
in
definitely.
this.
Being able to soak up information like that can sometimes have a physiological component to it, and so it was like, yeah, it's like so some of them were on the edge, and like for the humans, we went with the physiology, just one for balancing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it was definitely much split them up. Make sure, are you 100% sure that this will be this instead of this? At least for me, I'm not exactly sure what Adam's process was. Mostly what would happen is we take our stuff, like we'd work on it. If we had to, we'd drop what we were working on a little bit into our Discord, and the other two, so either myself and Ashton and Adam would like comments, and it'd be like, oh okay, and then go back to our corners.
That's actually a really nice way to work. You're like, I have support when I need it, but they also leave me alone. um, yeah. So, so there's a lot of really cool stuff in here, and I mean, honestly, we could go into it in detail, and you've got the dragon marks too. But honestly, I encourage everyone to just pick it up and read it. Did you have a discount code that you wanted to drop if anyone wants to pick it up from this? You can think about that for a second because you got to generate one if you do.
Damn it. I would
Maybe.
like maybe. Yep. Let's say maybe.
Okay, so if we end up with one of those, I'm gonna drop that in the panel under VJ's name. Otherwise, I'll just have the regular link to it so that you can pick it up. We'll figure this out like shortly after the show. Sorry, I didn't mean to drop a surprise on you. But anyways, so this isn't the only thing that you've worked on. I mean, you're not just gonna like this isn't the first thing you've created. So do you, when you're making stuff, like, do you have a tendency toward like this kind of player supplement, things that are player facing and will help people kind of craft their own world, or do you get into like adventures and, you know, creating big campaigns and all of that too?
Um, Honestly, all of my stuff almost exclusively has been either subclasses,
Okay.
this particular supplement, adding new mechanics to like make dealing with like different types of monsters cooler. And I have worked on like there were two projects I worked on, like the damn it. There was an Odyssey anthology, like
Mm-hmm.
a three-part, and I was on the first part of that. So I created an island that had a little adventure arc in it, and then there was damn it, how do I not know the names of my own of the own things I've been working on? And then there was Fight to the Top, which was a charity project that a bunch of us did that was really about the people rising up to like get rid of a like dictator like an oppressive government. But for the most part, it's very much just been like adding things for the player and the DM to enhance the game. So like my first product was actually Restless, laying incorporeal undead to rest. Like I'd my players, one group of my friends, I was running them through Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and we came to like them owning that tavern, and there's the poltergeist, and I was like, this is so boring. Like, what if they want to get rid of them? It's like kind of boring. I was like, it'd be cool. Exorcism rules. That would be cool. And
Ooh.
so my first product was, dealing with exorcisms. I will say I got a very scathing but honest review about it that made me realize, there's a lot of things that could have been better about it. So, like a redux on that project is definitely in the future for 2021,
So that
2022.
would be the Restless Guide to Laying Incorporeal Undead to Rest.
That'd
Okay.
be that.
That would be, I pulled up the portfolio, dropped a link to that in the chat for anyone else who wants to see all of the products that you have on the DMs Guild. Um, but I mean, it. There are people who kind of dabble in like supplements and in adventures, but it does tend to like be one or the other for most people. I've found it's definitely a very different way of um, content creating depending on which side you're working on. Because like
Mm-hmm.
writing an adventure is like, I mean, you got to storyboard, you got to outline,
Mm-hmm.
you got to
Mm-hmm.
craft characters and backstories and plots and subplots and 8 million clues so that they can find two of them.
It's like writing a book. You might as well, if you're gonna like when I'm pretty sure it was MT Black dropped the Call of the Deep with like the Mind Flayer pirate on it. I was like, you could have wrote a book for how much detail and amazing stuff you put into this. And like, it's not that that idea has daunted me or anything. It's just like I don't have a yet, so I was like, I'm just gonna leave it alone for the time being.
Yeah, and that's, that's perfectly fine. Like, um, there are, of course, DM's Guild is just bursting with people creating all manner of things. So um, it's good that we have, people who are interested in kind of both sides of that spectrum. So when you sit down and you're ready to, come up with a new idea, like where do you usually find your inspiration for stuff like that? Because you're kind of a little all over the place, which is normal, but
Okay, so actually I can go through my things and actually talk about what they are. So Restless,
yeah,
I wanted exorcism rules. I found some preliminary ones on the internet. I was like, oh, this is cool. But I was like, this could actually be expanded more.
make it
So
bigger.
like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go bigger on this. I was in Scientific Secrets of Icewind Dale, and my monster was the Frigid Doom, and it's based off of the tardigrade, which is a water bear. And like pretty much what happened is after I was like definitely a part of the project, I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? What's cool? I found the tardigrade and I was like, okay, what could, and it had this really interesting thing about it, like the way it like it sucks out nutrients from other organisms and then it sucks out nutrients from other organism, kills them that way, right? And then it's also susceptible to like acid damage. Like if you eat a tardigrade, you're gonna be fine because your stomach acids are going to like get rid of it. So I was like, okay, cool. What if this monster would, whenever it latches onto you and it sucks away some of your hit points, you have to make a constitution saving throw, or your hit points get lowered, your con score gets lowered, and if you drop to like 0 on either one, you're just done for. You're just a husk at that
So it's
point.
like a shadow, kind of.
Yeah, kind of like a shadow.
Yeah. Whew, boy, drop those on a low level party. They won't like you.
No, my current players right now, like I talk to them about the stuff I'm making, and I was like, y'all wait, y'all better not go to no cold area and not expect me to use these on you guys. Like, y'all better be afraid. Um, and then as far as
I think one of my favorite things about that, as an editor, was that that product actually contains actual APA style citations for the literature that inspired each of the monsters.
exactly, I was like, okay, this is cool.
I was
Odyssey
delighted.
Anthology.
Okay, Odyssey Anthology, which is really cool. So we were into a lot of Greek lore and everything, doing some Theros stuff.
Mm-hmm. I actually based the island off of. Okay, so the island was based off the island of Chios, which is a real island,
Mhm.
but I based like the two factions off of the two factions on the island of Chios from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Like I'd been replaying it at the time, and I was like, oh man, this would be so cool to build this. So I really just like I took the idea of the two factions and like their two forts and stuff. Like it's all it's not so similar that I had to worry about copywriting issues, but like the fort, the fort, like the fort having a majority of like of only soldiers, the pirate side having like regular people intermingled in it, and then there just being like a little town that was just like kind of neutral, was
Mhm.
all like taken from there. But the actual like story from like the storyline and stuff, it was like they were still warring between each other in the game as well, but just the extra elements like the Tetrios boar that was based off of like one of the legendary monsters from the game as well. So I really just like took bits and pieces from that game that I was in love with. It's like I can stat this out. I can make this a compelling story beyond what was going on in the game, and I can make these people feel like actual people with lives and stuff.
Mhm.
And so that's very much where that inspiration came from. So it's, I guess, if I had to pick one thing that definitely like influences what I like to make, it would be video games and like multiplayer games. Definitely like big inspirations for me.
And then a little bit of literature tossed in there.
A little bit of
A
literature.
little bit of
Yeah.
literature tossed in there because we definitely have some, actual references to the Odyssey. In here, we're on a seafaring journey, and bad shit happens along the way.
Mhm.
That is the one sentence summary for the Odyssey. We're on a boat and some bad stuff happens. Okay. Then you also have a submission that was included in the Lonely Scroll Saltmarsh contest.
Oh yeah, that was my first thing. That was the first thing I ever did on the DMs Guild. I forgot about that for a second.
With MT and Tony Petreka.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually a way that a lot of people kind of got started. It was kind of their push to just write it, just do it, just write something.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think around the time I started writing that, I was throwing my players up against a kraken. So I was like, man, what would be a cool underwater thing? And I was like, oh, a kraken that's already dead, its body's been turned into coral reef, and it's just like it's being used as a lair for like this powerful mind flayer like creature that like has 3 covens of hags inside of it because he ate the whole thing. And I was just like, that would be super dope. Just a quick little dungeon, drop in there, people can go in. It could turn into like a larger adventure because there was an escape route for Ragged Lynn. if like she was losing to the players. Um, but yeah, okay, so video games and situations I put my players in.
No, I think that's good. I feel like, oh god, this has been more years than I care to think about, but my first campaign that I played, my friend ran, I think that we had like a Kraken that was like part Hydra, and so like things just kept growing back. And we were like, make it stop. And
You are a mean DM. I love it.
no, it
Oh,
wasn't
man.
me. I was a player in that one.
Oh, you were one of the players. Oh, your DM is diabolical. I'm writing that down. Hold on, give me a second. My players are gonna hate me.
Yeah, so for everybody, take whatever the terrible thing it is and make it part Hydra, so it just keeps growing back. Or if it's on land, part Troll, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you really want to be mean, you could change the fire damage doesn't make it regenerate to something else, like necrotic damage, because everybody knows fire, and they'll just throw fire at it. But if you're like, and
I'm in the water. What's fire damage gonna do to me? Fight me.
why don't you try lightning? Take a gamble on that. Maybe I'm part shambling mound.
Okay, but all of those, like the Kraken, the Hydra, and the Shambling Mound, I'm pretty sure they're all monstrosities or something. So somebody created those things. Well, the Shambling Mound's probably a plant, but like somebody made that.
Dr. Frankenstein, I presume.
Exactly.
Then you did it looks like an adventure, Heart of the House. I don't know if these aren't in chronological order. They're just in no particular order.
No, they're not. God dang. Oh yeah, I was on that too. Okay, I want to. I have a very bad memory. I'm like,
that's why we wrote it down.
I was on that too. Yeah. So it's a haunted house. It was like the Halloween special. It was very much like a
with the effing dungeon mom.
Yeah. One, I got to work with some amazing people. Like I want to say to anybody that's trying to get into writing D&D stuff, just to join the community and make friends and partner up, because I like honestly, after I partnered up with Adam, like I just started like
doing collaborations, and it really builds your confidence too.
Especially if like someone's like, hey, I'd love you to be on the project. Like if somebody reaches out to you, it's like, oh, people see me. Me?
Little bitty old me.
But I really liked if I had to say what my favorite, like, An Elf and an Orc Had a Little Baby is my pride and joy. But I think the thing that I had the most fun working on was definitely Heart of the House, because like while we had an overall theme, we very much got to like do what we wanted for all of our rooms. Like the only one that definitely had some more feedback in it was like the actual heart of the house, like the final boss encounter, which I also wrote that part, but I also like, reached out and was like, hey, I'm thinking this, how's this sound? How's this look? But we really got to do a lot of what we wanted to do, because the premise of the house is that this house has been like bringing people in, and they're getting trapped there, and their spirits or their souls, whatever you want to think the entities inside of the house are. So it's like a lot of people from a lot of different places, a lot of things could be going on, right? So for example, I was in charge of the greenhouse, so there were like these like magical plants that would, like, if you stepped on one of the roofs, there was an apparition, like a warlock, that was like pretending to water the plants, like that's something they'd done in their life. And if you stepped on one of the roots, that warlock and the plants would like start attacking the person who stepped on the roots.
You're hurting their babies.
Yeah, you could heal the plant and they'd stop. But if you defeated everybody, or if you didn't disturb anybody, or if you defeated everybody, you'd find a book that would like had a number of creations in it, kind of like a book of holding, like you could rip out a potion or something. And like in the dining room, there was a plot to poison council members because the person hosting the party had been doing some shady dealings and was about to be kicked out the council, and was like, no, 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 we're just gonna have to poison everybody, make sure they die, and if I get poisoned too, they're not going to suspect that I poisoned people. So it was very much like I got to do a lot of fun things like that. I just like dragging in whatever like wonky idea I had about the people that were belonging in the house. But then I also got to see things from other people's part of the house too. So that was very much very fun for me.
Yeah, and there were that was an awesome group of creators there. So Brittany Hay, Riley, oh man, I'm gonna get this wrong. Rick, GRYC, Kat Evans, Christina Sisto Kendall, and then Ashton Duncan along with yourself. And it really is kind of a nice little spooky adventure. Let's see. So then you did your charity adventure, Fight to the Top. And I think that was actually kind of more of like a series of encounters.
Like there's a overarching like story beats, but mostly just a series of encounters. So like I said, people rising up against like a oppressive upper class and government. And one of the things I wrote was my favorite thing that I wrote in there was that like there was people on all the way out the outskirts that were responsible for like the farming and stuff, and there was someone who they looked to as their leader, right? And as the players come into the city, they have a chance to stop and help one of the farmers. And if they don't help one of the farmers, like it can have consequences later on. Something I really liked about writing that is like if the players helped, they would gain favor from the person in charge, right? But if the players didn't show that they actually cared about the people there, the person that was like in charge of them wasn't going to risk their people. And I really wanted to create a scenario like that because like in the real world, we hear people saying, we're going to have a civil war, we're going to do all this fighting, it's going to be great. And I'm like, it's going to be great on both sides. Like we're going to do
but
this.
Will it be? It's going to be awful.
Exactly. One, will it be? Two, like for the people that are like saying, people on the left saying like, yeah, we're gonna have a civil war and we're gonna get shit done, and it's like, okay, but
at what
not
cost?
not everybody's gonna want to be a part of that, because like in situations like that, very often if something fails, and even if something succeeds, it's the people on the lower end of things that are gonna get the brunt of what's happening. And I really very much wanted like a little scenario of that in this situation. Like, yeah, you're fighting to do something good, but you also got to recognize some people aren't going to want to be a part of that because they're taking care of other people. They're worried about like what could happen if you win or if you lose. And like
everybody kind of has like their own problems going on, and you don't know what's going on for them, and whether or not like, you know, is this a civil war to help everybody, or is this a civil war to solve your problems?
And like that character is not a villain. Like if the players decide to like try and get that person to help them and they didn't do the work, or the DM decides that person's just not going to do it at all, that character is not a villain here. They're like prioritizing the needs of the people they're in charge of. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I like that I got to write something like that.
Right, yeah. You know, because like everybody has like their own things going on. Like even there, like I think that's like kind of an important perspective to bring to people. Like, you know, when you think about adventuring in the Forgotten Realms and everything, like there are so many people in the realms aside from your characters. Like, I mean, honestly, if you just pull out your character book and think about how many people like you haven't created that are in the realms all by yourself, and multiply that times how many players you know, there's already a lot of people. And then there's just all these like townsfolk hanging out and everything. Like everyone has a life, and like how is your adventuring affecting their lives? If you go and you burn down a village, what did you do? Like where do those people go? Like most people don't think about like stuff like that, and it really kind of adds like an interesting layer of play to it, of thought to it, because you have to think, okay, so like if we need to burn down this village, like how do we make sure that all these people still have somewhere to live? Because sometimes like the need to burn down the village, it you can find a reason that it needs to be burned down, but you kind of, you know, The consequences. You got to deal with them.
I really like. I recognize not every D&D game is about like facing the consequences of your actions. Sometimes people just want to blow off steam, do like bad things, like burn down a village, and not have to deal with it. But I really like to encourage anybody who's DMing to really like at least put this put those moral quandaries and like ask those hard questions. Have an NPC asking that question of your players. If they decide, oh well, whatever, not our problem, okay then. But you've asked them the question. You've given them the chance to like think about it as their characters, role play it, grow as people, or devolve. Well, I'll say grow because you know you can grow.
You can grow either way. It could it could be positive or negative.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to grow into a villain in order to be a super villain,
right?
But yeah, I do think adding those moral quandaries in adds like a depth and a complexity to like any campaign, because then you really kind of become more invested in the world around you, because you're like, do we want to set all of this livestock free, or do we think that that's gonna make this village suffer? We could just steal these horses. It'll be fine. I mean, you kind of. I mean, you can get as granular into that as you want, because like obviously there's like with any campaign there's like big stuff going on, and then there's like the little day to day, like I mean, like with Descent into Avernus, like technically a choice that you can make is that Baldur's Gate goes to hell, and you're like, oh man, this sucks, and then you don't do anything about it. It ends the campaign a little early, but like that's a choice you can make. It's gone to hell, and you're like, actually, it's kind of nice down here. Just gonna sign some infernal contracts. I'm gonna start being a soul broker. Honestly, my life is looking up. I don't understand what everyone's complaining about. Like, there's options to everything. And then, same with like, Icewind Dale, Rime and the Frost Maiden. You could be like, someone who loves to live in the shadows, and you're like, other than the cold, like honestly, this is pretty great for me. So, sucks to be y'all. Or, you could be that party who gets up there and they're like, there's no light, nobody can grow any crops. Because I'm sure you can grow something even when it's always snowy. That works, right?
Yep, magic.
Yeah, and it's just like there's all these things, and all of a sudden your character's like, we gotta fix this curse. Why? You don't even live here. We do. We have to fix it. It doesn't matter. This is suddenly our problem now too. Like, so it's like these shades of I guess accountability that people take for like the world around them. And it's really interesting to kind of think about those and to build them into your into your creation, so your adventures, or like said, even back to the Elven Orc Had a Little Baby, like your upbringing is gonna factor into whether or not you give a shit about the world around you. So being able to have that I guess flexibility with like character creation and everything is always makes it a more unique world. So you've done a lot of stuff. So what's the next thing that you want to work on, or are you working on anything that you could talk about?
Yeah, actually, I'm working on. Okay, so there are 3 things that are currently in the works, and then there are 3 things that are like
Planned.
That I'm. Yeah.
They're on the whiteboard.
Yes, actually, I have a little pink book that I put all my little like ideas and whatnot that I can like just keep on my person.
I am a firm believer in whiteboards. I have whiteboards everywhere. I also have notebooks everywhere too.
But okay, so I am currently working on another project with Adam Hancock. I said this already in another interview the two of us did together. If I can work with Adam consistently for like the next forever, that'd be great. I love working with him. He's great. He has great design ideas. Like, he takes feedback and criticism really well. And like, Adam is in his own words, like a straight white guy. And so he'll like when it comes to like issues that don't really affect him, he'll like, take a step back and listen. Like so right now, myself, Adam, and another creator, Sin, that's the
Hmm.
Discord name. Damn it, I should have took better notes on this. We are working on like a 5e compatible product called Those Who Wander, right? And it was Adam's idea, and it's essentially Adam was born of the idea of like, what would I change if I could of like 5e, right? And pretty much a lot, like a bunch of it is like character creation, like this type of stuff we saw in an Elf and an Orc. Other things are like simplifying the classes so that like you can dip in and out more easily, but still like keeping kind of like the streamline thing,
Okay, so
keeping it
making
quick.
multi-classing a little bit more
Yeah,
intuitive.
yeah. Really stepping away, like correcting some of the like bad lore that's in D&D 5e. So like drow, orcs, hyena folk, even, or well, gnolls. I call them hyena folk in my game. Gnolls, and like creating more like magic items that are like they level as you do, that kind of thing. So
Ooh,
that's
ancestral items. Those are so cool.
yeah, right. So right now the three of us are designing that, and we have like a really great editor and artists on board as well. Um, so that's one of the projects we're working on, and I believe the Kickstarter will be out in like January at some time, maybe February at the latest,
That's what
but
I
I'm
was gonna
pretty sure it's
say. That
January.
sounds like a big project, like a book, another 100 and something page project.
Yeah, big book, especially if we like if I'm working on a number of like design elements, so like heirlooms. I contributed like a parentage this
Mm-hmm.
time around, but a lot of the things I'm working on are also like stretch goal stuff. Like I really love taking like some of the like lesser touch things and building around them. Like
Like the
for example,
features people don't use a lot because, like,
they're kind of they're kind of meh.
eh, yeah.
Yeah. So like for example, vampirism and lycanthropy, like as it stands, if anybody catches it, it can be very game breaking or very underwhelming. And instead I was like, it would be way cooler and a lot like easier if like all of the ability the enhancement and detriments were broken down and given like a point value, and then the player automatically has X amount of detriments when they
Mm-hmm.
get the affliction.
When they contract the, yeah,
Yes, when they
the
contract the
curse.
affliction.
Ah.
Hmm. And but they also like get a number of points where they can buy enhancements, and if they really want more points they can take more detriments. So like let's say you get 3 points at like the first tier of play, right? So tiers 1 to 4. If you see, there are some things that are worth like 5 points that you just can't get at that point. Now if you really want like a couple more points, you can go over to like the detriments table and be like, okay, I'm going to take this, and it's going to give me a total of 6 points so I can spend on the enhancements. So like you're gaining things while making things more likely to harm you, so it's like keeping it balanced a little bit more.
Yeah, it's like, suddenly you're super fast and everything, but the sunlight, it burns.
Hmm. Or like um you know you can't cross running water, you take acid damage or something, and like that system's being used for like vampirism and lycanthropy.
Melting. That's definitely what that
um
makes me think of. Well, that sounds really cool. And
I'm
so we're thinking spring, maybe.
yeah, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing the plan is. I'm also like a stretch goal writer on the Blood of Tyrants, which is a Blades in the Dark
Mm-hmm.
product, which is going to be super cool, and that's due like either on the 31st of this month or the 1st. I need to get on that. I'm
You
a
got a couple
bit of a
days.
procrastinator
You got a
sometimes.
couple
Yeah, I
days.
got a couple days.
Uh,
It's not a
if it helps you, the deadline is tomorrow. No.
it's I'm just contributing like an additional faction and like talking more about like the faction I'm creating is I believe I called it the Faithful Militants.
Okay.
And essentially they, unlike their like regular counterparts, they get their hands dirty and will take the fight to like the blood sucking vampires that are like bleeding the people dry. And so I'm writing about that, and it's giving me a chance to like talk more about like the prosperity gospel. Like that's a real thing in the real world, but it's also something that's in the game as well. And I'm like, I'm getting a chance to expand on that and how they view that. And then finally, something that I am in charge of. So
Ooh, you're project
yeah,
managing.
yes. So a while ago, there was this huge controversy because Mustang Art on Twitter came out
Sarah.
with
The
yeah,
combat
yeah,
wheelchair.
the combat wheelchair. Yes, and people just like
Lost their shit.
yeah, and I'm like, this is so like when I was watching that happen, outside of like obviously commenting be like, hey, like y'all are ridiculous. It's a fantasy game. Chill out. I was like, man, I would love to make a big book of disabilities where like people in the community are writing about their experiences and like part of it's writing about your experiences, part of it is having like it translated into role play or mechanics in different settings.
Mm-hmm.
And that way people that don't belong to these communities can like engage with these identities in a respectful and non-ableist manner. And then there's a tabletop mentoring program that happened. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get a mentor. I'm gonna get a mentor and I'm gonna get this ball rolling. And so I got a mentor. I bit the bullet. I got the ball rolling. The project is like I've partially staffed it. I've gotten a lot of things like ironed out. I've got more people to reach out to who like did an application and like a big push for more artists
Mm-hmm.
and writers in January. But the Kickstarter will probably like be out either start of March or halfway through March. And like it's called the Crimson Gauntlets Guide to Disabilities in Neurodiverse Identities. And like I'm really excited about it, not just because like combating ableism, but also because I really hate the rates in like the tabletop role playing industry, like paying like less than 10 cents a word and really like
Yeah.
yeah. And I was like, you know what, if I'm going to be running a Kickstarter, I might as well just go big or go home. So like the baseline for writers is 20 cents per word. And some of the Kickstarter tiers are going to be like, half of them will be, oh, you get the people that are backing get something cool. And the other half is everybody gets a raise. Everybody gets like a 5% raise.
I'm kind of waiting on the industry to go away from this per word thing.
I
It's
don't
such
accept that.
it's kind of a bad way to do it though, because it encourages people to churn out useless words. Like
Yeah.
quality over quantity, honestly. Like, you know, I think everyone should still be paid a fair rate, right? But like, you know, you're gonna write this section and you need to tell this thing, and I don't care how many words it is, like, this is what this section's worth. If we go over, you know, like a certain amount, let's talk some more and see how much of that we need. But like, I do think like starting with the getting a higher per word rate is definitely a good place to start, because first we need to be paid fairly. Then we need to talk about the pay structure.
Uh-huh.
First, let's get enough money, then we'll do radical reformatting.
Yeah, make sure everybody can cover their expenses, and then let's talk about changing things.
Yeah.
Like I'm really excited to be especially able creators. Like I'm trying to make sure everybody that's actually like creating or writing for the project is disabled, so that I'm putting money back into the pockets of the communities that I belong to.
Mm-hmm. And I
So
think
those
that's brilliant.
So those are three things that are like coming up in the immediate future. Things that are on the table for like 2021, 22. What caused the day of mourning? I'm a big Eberron fan, and I know Keith is never gonna tell us what actually caused the day of mourning, but I also know that like for new DMs and maybe even old ones, like if you want to have the day of mourning feature in your campaign, but you don't actually want to come up with like an actual like how did this happen, I want to like make like just a little supplement that like gives like 10 to 15 like outlines for how it happened and some clues you can drop in.
I think it would be actually really interesting to do that as like a series of like NPC interviews where people are telling like what they think caused. Yeah, you can write that down. You can take it. What they think caused it. So you've interviewed like these 10 characters in Corvair, and they're all like, "Well, let me tell you what happened."
Oh yeah. Oh man. Okay. Well, I will make sure to credit you and be like, this amazing format was brought to you by.
Yes. No, that's exciting. That's an exciting project. I love Eberron. I need to write some more.
Great.
I wish more people would pay for it.
There's also an Elf and an Orc Had a Little Baby 2 on the horizon. There are there's a couple of there's this like 3-part supplement, Monstrous Races, that was done on the DM's Guild that has some additional races that aren't like official D&D races that still look really cool, could use the same treatment that the ones we did had, and like I really want to go back and like bring those in and split them up. And so like that's on the horizon. And then of course, as I said earlier, my first product that I did by myself, it needs a redux. It definitely needs like a change to it. And I'm definitely gonna go back in there, fix it, and give the people who like supported me on the first one a nice little like treat.
Yeah, that'd be good. And then with Elf and Orc 2, you've got a lot of opportunity too to go back to like older editions and look at races that were like Gnolls were a playable race at one point in time. A lot of people still want to play them, so like that's
Gnolls will definitely be in an Elf and an Orc too. Yeah, definitely. I love them.
All right, Paige, she's putting Gnolls in it. You sold at least one copy.
I in my home game, like right now my Magic was gone for like 5,000 years or whatever, and my players brought it back as like teenagers and stuff. And so the like hyena folk in my game very much like same culture as the Gnolls, but less of the like evil touch of things. And like recently, because the magic came back and like the demonic influence could reach them, some of them like
they're having a little struggle.
Yeah, they're having a struggle. And like I really like Gnolls are like one of my favorite monsters. I think they're super cool. They're fun to play around with. They're fun to humanize. I love humanizing them, changing their lore, making them feel like complex people who are like they are complex people, and they're suffering an affliction. Like they're under a curse. Like it's like they're under like lycanthropy and they can't control it. Like I really, and right now like my players are sometimes like one of my girlfriend plays in this game, and her character killed one of the Gnolls because she used magic, and I was like, you can't do non-lethal magic damage. I'm sorry.
Nope.
And like, and it killed the character, and like her character, Korad,
she's just all torn up about it.
Yes, like Korad is a mess. Korad knew this character most of his life, knew the character's husband, the NPCs, children, all of it. And so it's very much like a angsty, giving my players feels type moment.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I am so excited for like all of this that's upcoming. And like I'm sure as you go on, you're gonna keep having these ideas, and so the list is just gonna grow. So, you know, I can't wait to see what else you do. I'm excited.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we are at the ending of the hour. So, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you on social media, where they can find your work, and whatever other self promo you want to drop out there?
Yeah. Okay. So on Twitter, I am Vic the with 2 H's. My Linktree account is actually pretty easy. It's just a Linktree / VJH Creations. If you go on that, it has literally every link you could possibly have. My TikTok, where I'm currently doing I'm doing a series on why I was disappointed with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I love the new character options. I think the Rune Knight is the shit. Sorry. But like there are other things I was hoping it would do that it didn't. I was like, so I'm talking about that, and I'm planning on doing like a rundown of some of the campaigns, third party and Wizards of the Coast, that don't have all the problematic like slavery stuff that some of them have. But yeah, going on my Linktree, you'll find everything: TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and my website, which is going through a construction phase, but still has some good stuff in it.
You know, it's it's a work in progress. My website needs work right now too. Okay. Well, so next week, here on the Designer's Den, I am going to have Craig Campbell from Nerd Burger. So tune in next week at 4 p.m. We're gonna have a chat with Craig. About all kinds of stuff. We're gonna kind of move away from D&D for a hot minute. And kind of change the gears. And then we have Marco Bernardini the week after that, and then Andrew Bashinsky, and then Teos Abadia to round out January. I'll be announcing my February guest soon. Very excited for all of that, and look forward to the future. And gosh, this has been so good so far this year, and I can't wait to see what everyone who's been on the show so far just continues to come out with it. And VJ, thank you so much for being here with me today. This has been an absolute delight.
This was great. I love this.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, everyone.